So I'm supposed to be talking here. I'm supposed to be talking. I'm supposed to speak and say something. So I chose the topic. She's very busy in here. I got things I'm fixing. I chose a topic today. Uh, Talk about the Creator, God the Creator. Is always a good first topic to get everybody to cut this video off or really start listening, depending on the personality. As we talk about God, the Creator, we're going to talk about race. We're going to talk about knowledge. And these are very, very important. So I just want to think about this thing and say, hey, so we got a situation, the world we live in now. We do not believe that there is a creator, most of us, that can really make a difference in our life. Like, we really are not able to, in many ways, materialize the benefit of what God, the Creator, can do for our life. A lot, we spend much of our time focusing on the next 5 to 10 years that we're going to be alive, and what things we can do to prolong our life, to get as much benefit from it as we can, to get a family, to get a spouse, to get into situations that are most beneficial to us, so we can avoid pain. A lot of what we do is to avoid pain and to avoid, death, and to enjoy as much as we can. That's the driving factor. So you think about, you know, why, if we say, so the numbers, I think are pretty high, and I think we're still in the 70% range of people who still believe in God, and then you have those who just don't. So now we have this monster rearing its head upon the creation now, with all of us here together, trying to live together, dealing with the pandemic, dealing with, having to find good work, keep friends, be around friends, maintain our normal lifestyle in a constantly changing world. We're getting caught up in politics. And a major issue is like, look, you know, uh, this racial thing has hit us really hard. This racial problem has hit us really hard. And many of us who are African American, we've lost trust in a lot of those people we thought that we could trust. We realize that, look, these people really don't have our back. So many of us have turned inward, trying to figure this thing out. And there's a depressive state that is with us, and we're trying to get to a point where we can come out of our shell. We're just ready to come out. We're ready to come out, and we came out, and so here we are. And part of the reason why I think we're catching this hell that we're catching is because, as African Americans, we've turned away from God, because we started following, our origin was, a lot of our success came from the early church. I would say not necessarily the church, but our spiritual grounding. And we were a people who would, even though we do have superstition in our history, but the reason we were able to come through all that suffering, through slavery and everything, is because we turned to God. It's not to say we're a special people, better than other people, but what brought us out of that darkness is our trust in God. And you can just look at the civil rights movement briefly and see that. That's what brought us through. So once God freed us, like the children of Israel, were freed from Pharaoh, we turn to the idols. We turn to the idols that the world gave us. At this time, this is the Western kingdom, and we felt free in this Western kingdom. In many ways, we were let out from this grand prison and into this grand kingdom, and many of us took it, and we fell in love with it. You know, and some would call that the golden calf. Yeah, I don't know if that was our golden calf or not. To be free shouldn't be something like that. But for some of us who are willing to give up our values and give up the God that freed us to enjoy this life. And so race is a factor now for African Americans again. And we're revisiting the struggle from the standpoint where we are being wronged, but then now we hold some responsibility for that wrong. Because some of us, we've abandoned the ways of right thinking and right acting, and we've embraced some of the exploitative realities that came with being an American, that came with being part of Western civilization. There's an aspect of exploitation of the minority and the other. And this manifests itself in some of us being racist toward Hispanics and looking at ourselves exclusively as better than others in knowledge and in other things, and taking on the ideas that have been self-destructive for Western civilization. Instead of developing our own thinking, a true man is a free man, and he's free in his mind, and so he's not going to repeat the dictums of his oppressor. So part of the reason why we are catching all of these problems is because we decided to take on some of that. So this is where this God-race dichotomy is a problem, because we think that we somehow are only responsible to ourselves now. We've embraced this centralized me, the religion of private property, the religion of selfies. And that's our culture by and by. It's not like it's not American culture, it is. This is really the collective culture of all of us, race aside. But to understand race is to understand it's really a human construct. And what we've really been dealing with is not necessarily the fact that the race really exists in any meaningful way. It's an experience, and many people can join that experience with us. If there is a white baby that grew up with us and spoke like us and acted like us and had our experience, what would the difference be? It'd be very, very minuscule. So being African American is an experience. So let's take it to the other side. What is it like to be a European male in the United States now? Look at the effect of race. You're thinking that you live in a country that your fathers built, and they are very intelligent, and they were amongst them great inventors and travelers, explorers, and developers. And this country was built up fighting wars with enemies all over. You have Christendom, the good Christian religion, and you're trying to spread it to all over the world, and you're trying to spread your ideas of freedom and democracy everywhere. And you had slaves, but that wasn't something that you were all about. You were more than that. But you should, everyone should love that effort that you put forward, despite the fact that it may have caused some trouble. It's not like it's bad. And now here you come with all your problems, and you didn't contribute to this, and now you want to help run it. And I'm saying, look, I made this, I did this, and where is God in the equation? We're not saying, look, God gave me the ability to be in America. God gave me the will to be here, and gave me the tools and the time and the mind to get here. And many were the people and civilizations that passed away before me that had similar great minds, in many ways better minds, philosophically and so on. So I'm just an inheritor of the kingdoms, one of the kingdoms that will exist. So instead of showing gratitude for that and appreciating the diversity of God's creation, now I want to be in control. I want to control everything. So when we forget God, we see self only, and this is the problem. As African Americans, we see self only, and we see our tribe and we see our history only, which is important. But when you see that only, now you're on a lonely track, and it's going to lead you to a place of misery eventually, because it is a vision that is degrading, constantly degrading. It degrades. And a vision that's only focused on race as a construct, it'll always degrade, because the nature of man is to rise above himself, to not be limited by these minute details of his existence. It's to excel beyond those things and go to higher ideals and higher vision and higher understanding of his relationship with everyone else. So here we are now. We've been extracted into this issue again of race. And we're going to play this game out for another 20, 100 years. I don't know. How long is it going to take? So the next issue is knowledge. And this was our topic today. The topic was basically God, race, and knowledge. How do we reconcile these things? You know? Because it's the knowledge of self and the knowledge of God. And it's the knowledge of understanding what our purpose is, that we can actually come out of these racial problems wanting to know. If you don't even want to know, there's no debate, there's no talk. Everything shuts down and violence comes in. And that's why we're seeing violence. And truth is being destroyed. True knowledge knowledge has become information, and information can be sold and bought, and it can be created and destroyed. Truth can be destroyed by a lie that's been created and posted on Facebook and spread by, all these massive artificial intelligence computers giving impressions to so many different people from the same demographic to get them to think a certain way, and truth is lost. And so knowledge is a gift. It's not a right. It's a gift. People say freedom is a gift. Yeah, freedom is not free. Same thing with knowledge. Knowledge is a gift. And if you don't take it, if you don't use it, it will come back and hit you by ignorance, through false knowledge. And the best knowledge that the human being was ever given at any time, the best knowledge that the human being was ever given at any time was knowledge of God. And we apply this small thinking when we think about it, forgetting that the universities and most of the centers of learning in human history have been religious institutions, forgetting the vast amount of the ecclesiastical knowledge that's there on philosophy, on man and his creation and culture, all these different things. It has always expanded man, the knowledge of God, like I was speaking about before, beyond his knowledge of just race, of just culture, of just this or that. The knowledge of God has propelled him beyond the simple color of his skin, the simple language that he speaks, just to only revel in what his ancestors did. So, God, in God, how does God do that? And this is really, really amazing to me. I think about it. Maybe this is getting boring, but it's just, think about it though. The knowledge that the Creator has given us, it propels us beyond these common constructs. Even as something like, our fathers were known to greatness. Like, think about it. Frederick Douglass is an ancestor. I would consider he's an ancestor, a spiritual ancestor of my experience in America. Okay? But I realize that even though Frederick Douglass is a great example, and there are excellent things in his life, I can appreciate him as a servant of God and as somebody who had a unique contribution. But I can still take from somebody who may be from Asia or who may be from Europe, because I'm looking at this person as a creation of God, one of the children of Adam. And so I can take that knowledge because I know that's my Adamic brother, and I can appreciate that, and I can expand and I can grow. But if I don't have that, then I'm stuck. I can't appreciate somebody outside my tribe because that would be taboo, because I'm supposed to only be appreciating people from my lineage. And this is a degrading thing. The only way, I mean, you can come out of that by simply not caring. This is some of what secular humanism has done. We look at the human being as a group, the creation of man, and man in this biological reality. But again, it's reductive because you're only looking at man. Man becomes the focus, and he becomes reduced only to that which he can see, understand through his faculties, and that which is beyond, in many ways, his sixth sense, his spiritual eye, has been closed. Secular humanism, in many ways, closes the spiritual eye, and you're only looking at what you can ascertain through your five senses. Any aspect of the sixth sense is diminished, disregarded, or leads you to all different types of crazy beliefs and understandings. There's no grounding. But secular humanism does the same thing. It makes us think, hey, we're all from one creation, mankind, who, through evolution, maybe I'm doing secular humanism a disservice. Maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe it's not really an anti-religion ideology. I'm not saying it is. But just the eye of only looking at mankind as the summa cum laude, then you end up in the same bag as race. Because you're looking at only the outward things. What did you build? What did you invent? What did your ancestors do? You're looking at what was done to benefit humans, most of the time from a materialistic standpoint. And that's another thing about secular humanism, or humanism in general, is primarily concerned with material benefits. And it's very difficult for it to see intrinsic benefits. To see a nation maybe in poverty and not developing, and then not see the good that's happening there, and not see a model that it needs to follow, because all it sees is poverty. It doesn't see the connectedness of the family, the low suicide rate, the high marriage rate and birth rate, the fact that this civilization doesn't harm the environment, doesn't harm their neighbor, don't kill and harm their neighbors, don't spread mischief, and they don't oppress others. A lot of times we will throw all that out and go for someone who can build big, tall buildings and large militaries, and who can create this and do that, which are all beneficial things. But humanism is such a subjective point. It's very subjective. Depends on the person who's looking at it. So this is where we go back to, look, knowledge, true knowledge, is the greatest knowledge, is knowledge of God, who transcends that, who forces man to look at his creative act, look at his senses, right? God says that, Ephelet, do you not think? Do you not ponder? Do you not reflect? Do you not see? Have you not thought about this or that? And so God is always asking us to think and to reflect, right? So we're using our five senses. And then on top of that, you're using your spiritual eye. And not only that, you're thinking about long-term building. Not just 10 years from now or 100 years. You're looking at when you die, when you go to the unseen realm, what action you're taking right now, this very second, how that's going to impact 1,000 years in the future or in the hereafter. The people who plan the world, they plan the world. The best of them who plan, they plan for 10, 20, most of us would plan retirement 20 years from now. The people who manage retirement funds, they're going to be planning for 100 years from now or more. And as the higher up your responsibility gets in society, the higher and longer, really, your projected planning goes. So you see, God is giving mankind a simple, okay, here you are, man. Your goal is the hereafter. And you have to plan your life from now to the moment you die. And that's a 10-year plan. That's a 20-year plan. That's a 50-year plan. For the person who really believes, he has to plan his life out, and he has to look at events in history from that same standpoint. What has man accomplished since he was created? What can he accomplish? Now you're looking at it from a standpoint of view of God. And you're looking at everybody as being a creation of God, and you're realizing that we're connected and interconnected. And you're realizing that just because you see something some way, you have to know that there's a God who sees more than you, knows more than you, has more capability than you. And then you can submit to that reality and not your own limited reality, your limited need to rely on others, to rely on power structures, to rely on money, to rely on anything other than that relies on nothing, which is God. And so, that's the big deal now. Race has taken us over. Race has become a major force for the disillusion of peace, because we have put it into the wrong construct and we've taken God away. We've left this vacuum that will only make things worse. You're only going to have peace until we're not going to have any peace until we bring God to the table. And we refuse to bring God to the table because we've become arrogant and self-reliant on our own knowledge, thinking that we know. And so if you look at it, and we take God out of the picture, then race comes into the fold. And the survival of the fittest comes into the fold. And I did better than you because I made this and I did that and you didn't. Because you didn't know how. Because you're an inferior man and I'm a superior man. And that battle is going to rage on and rage on and rage on. And do you think sometimes maybe that God is just looking at us and saying, fine, that was what you chose, so deal with that. Let's see how you deal with that. Let's see how you work that out. Because you took me out of the picture, so let's see how you roll with that. And let's see how we're rolling with that. See how we're rolling with that. How are we rolling with that? I'm better than you because, I suffered this and I suffered that. You owe me this because this happened to me, that happened to me, happened to me. Not to say that that's invalid, but if you take that and you take God out of it, you take out the miracle that God can work in your life. You take out personal responsibility for where you are. You see, when you say, "Oh, this is America, America, America," America. You relying on a construct, a limited construct, that a nation that was founded 300 years ago. Those people didn't know everything. They were human beings. They had to live and die and sleep, and they had to have struggles, and there was things they didn't know. So you relying on your limited understanding of what they knew. You can still appreciate what they did, but then you take that knowledge and you use it to get all knowledge in light of what God has given you. But you take that away, and it's just about you and your country. You'll destroy the whole world because of your small mind. You destroy the whole world because of your small mind. On the races, we also have to learn to appreciate the contributions of people who come from different experiences. That's what it's really about. Sometimes we say, we look, like I was talking about, the secular humanistic standpoint, which teaches us that, we gauge human experience and human beneficence and human achievement and greatness by what was produced and developed, invented, and a lot of times we don't gauge the things that matter. You see, so we find ourselves using race, and knowledge, or really knowledge, in a place that makes some races inferior based on that, and we can't see and appreciate, like I was speaking about earlier, the contributions of people who have different set of talents because they have a different set of experiences, because they had a different cultural and even geopolitical context. You have to learn. The best of us are those who learn from each other. And God says He created you from nations and tribes so that you may know one another, not that you may despise one another. Surely the best of you in the sight of God are those who are the God, most God conscious. Those who are most conscious of God's will and creation, those are the best ones. The best people on earth are those who are most conscious of what the will of God is on earth, and they're implementing that. Other than that, everything else, it's like the rain that comes to the earth. God sends down rain to it. The seed sprouts. It grows into a tree. It lives for a long time. Weather beats on it. Creation beats on it. Insects and birds. Time comes, and eventually that big oak tree will die. You see? The nation is born. The first settlers arrive. The wars are fought. The territory is expanded. You see? The grassroots grow into a great nation, a great government, a great administration. More wars are fought. More territories are taken. Resources are brought in. Systems are created. Trade and commerce is conducted. You see, a great nation is built. A great tree is built. And rain comes down to it. New growth, new life, new people, new ideas keep coming and renew the nation, but eventually that nation is going to die. Like all the nations died before. But the most valuable part of that nation is its ability to enact the will of God on earth. It will be remembered for that. And so far as it did not do that, it will be remembered for that. So we have to be cautious what we're remembered for. And we have to if we would just look at things like that and not try to look at ourselves as only Americans or only this. No, we're human beings who are living in this land and this time in creation. And we have choices that we can make, good or bad. Ultimately, that's the root of the thing. Your ability to be a good American is your ability to be a good human being. If you're a good human being, you're a good American. If you're a bad human being, you're a bad American. That's the standard we should have. That's the standard that every nation should have. But the fact that we have to use buzzwords to make ourselves feel better doesn't change the reality of the situation. And again, if God leaves us, and I think that He has left us in this mess because we abandoned Him. So now we're dealing with our demons, and they're ugly demons. This demon of race has reared its head, and this concept of being better because of what you did or what you made is just totally undermining our ability to progress. We can make a lot of progress if we learn to appreciate each other in the light of God. We can make a lot of progress if we learn to appreciate each other in the light of God and His great knowledge. And there's always more that He can teach us. There's always more. There are new horizons. There are always new things to be discovered, new technologies, new minds that can bring in new life. The quickest way and the best way to do it is in the light of God. And if we do it depending on our own ability and our own hubris, then we're in trouble. We're in for a long ride.